at the eclipse that we have coming up. So since my audio was messed up before, our next eclipse, we're at the end of eclipse season here. We're coming to the finish line. We're so close. And we're leading up to this eclipse that we have on Saturday, March 29th. It's at 3:57 a.m. Pacific time. So, for me here in Los Angeles, I will be asleep. It will be early morning if you are on the East Coast of the United States. And so, yeah, that is the end of eclipse season. And it doesn't end like right away, but it's kind of wrapping up at that point. And it's been quite an eclipse season, I have to say. I knew this one was going to be a lot. The news has been very difficult to keep up with, even for people like me who read a lot, probably too much news. But as I was saying, I think one of the things we really need to keep an eye on is that the situation in this country has never been great for certain people that are like undocumented, for example. I don't think it's right to detain those people and round them up, and especially not in the way that we have been doing. But the situation is escalating because legal residents of the United States are being rounded up, detained. I wouldn't even use the word deportation because deportation is a legal process, and a lot of these people aren't even getting that process. So some really scary stuff is happening, and I don't think that we can afford to not pay attention because the next step for this is that people that are citizens that say things that this government doesn't like will be the next target. So we don't have a choice, but we should care that this is happening. We should really, really care, because first that speech, the first they came for, like, I wish everybody knows it, and I feel like a lot of people don't live it. So we're deep in that speech, and it's not a poem. I found out it was a speech given by a pastor who didn't step up during the Holocaust and had deep regrets about it, because it when you go after certain marginalized people, it's only a matter of time before it starts spilling out of that container. So I want us to keep an eye on that because I think it's super, super important, and I do think that we will continue to see escalation of that, like straight up. If you don't live in the United States, I would not come here. I would not come here if you don't have to right now, because I just don't think it's worth taking the chance. And I'm sorry to start it off on such a down note, but I am very concerned about that, and I do think we will see escalation over the summer for sure. So we're building towards that, and so it's really important that we take action now and we freak out now and make this not okay. We have to push back. So there's that. But let's look at the eclipse. It's not. I'm laughing because it's actually really not funny. And again, I'm not trying to freak people out, but I really want us to keep our eyes on what's happening because they benefit if we don't. So yeah, it's been a doozy. It has been a doozy. Okay, I'm gonna move myself over here so y'all can see me. I have a new background. I hope you guys like it. I realized it should match my little cover that I put in Patreon. So here's our beautiful eclipse chart. It has been a doozy. Shelby, I'm sending you my love. I'm sending all of you my love, really. Like, I think about, even people that I don't interact with that follow my work. I'm hoping that everybody is surviving this as best they can, taking care of themselves as best they can, and taking care of your communities as best you can, because that is what's going to save us. I've been saying this for years because I knew that some version of this was coming, and there are a few different ways that it could play out, depending on who does what and who's in charge of what. So I knew things were going to get really serious, and that's why I've been talking about community so much. This is one of many reasons. It's really important to get plugged in locally. Yeah, Shelby, you've been MIA. You have small bandwidth. I am in the same boat. I think a lot of us are in the same boat. And I think that's partly why this eclipse season has felt so intense, because we're all really like running on fumes. We just got through Pisces season, which is like, it's the end of the astrological year. So we're kind of digesting the year before. And, around New Year's, usually we get contemplative, we get reflective of the year that's come before. And even if it's on a subconscious level during Pisces season, a lot of that stuff is under the surface, and it takes energy to do the processing and the feeling. And I think we're not used to looking at intellectual work, spiritual work, mental, anything that involves our minds is, I think, really downplayed in terms of like, that all takes energy, that all costs something for our bodies. So it's really important that we take care of ourselves and take care of each other, because I think everybody is spread pretty thin right now, unless you're a Nazi. There's a lot to be, concerned about. And then we also have to survive capitalism and like live our lives. It's really a tough time. And so that's also why it's so important that we all are involved, because, that saying, many hands makes for light work, and it's not all up to one person. Which brings me to this eclipse, because it's in Aries. Aries is the sign of the individual, right? And so we're in a moment where, socially we've been conditioned to expect a hero, right? In the United States, that is usually like the president who's gonna come in and make the changes so that people can have a better quality of life. That's typically how we kind of view that. And presidents, as we're seeing, they can have an enormous amount of power. Kind of depends on who's in there and how far they're willing to push it. We're seeing that now. We have a president now that is really willing to flout the law, push it, and is also, has just like a clown car of just some of the worst accomplices imaginable. These are Nazis, and they have nefarious aims. Also, there's other stuff happening, like I was talking about the students that are being deported. I saw today that actually somebody that was a Russian person who is critical of the war that Russia started with Ukraine was I think detained or not allowed into the U.S. Something happened that concerns me too, because I think we really need to understand that not only is this is obviously happening in the United States, it's happening around the globe, though. And I think just during this eclipse season, there have been two that I've seen. There may be even more if I miss something. There have been two leaders in power that have detained or imprisoned their political opponents just this eclipse season: Sudan and Turkey. You can see that if you kind of zoom out on a global scale, the fascism dial is just, it's going up. And so we're being pushed. But I really want to point out that it's not, if I think you peel all the details away, what we're really seeing is class war. We're seeing oligarchs, people with enormous amounts of power and money. That includes leaders in many cases, do whatever it is that they want to do to the people. And what I think is happening is that I think that climate crisis is very dire, and the situation with resources is going to get really hairy over the next few years, because when you have climate crisis and weather pattern shifting, that all affects like growing food. It affects a lot of things. And it can cause an enormous amount of destruction. And we also have a public health crisis, like I don't even know that we've seen this since we have, modern medicine able to do what it is. This is, a huge public health failure on a number of levels that's happening right now. And it's not going to stay contained to the United States. So I think that the people that have a lot of the resources, power, and money, you could call them oligarchs, that certainly fits. They're banking on us dying en masse. And I think that's why they're behaving the way that they are. They think that AI is going to be able to do the things that they need to do. And so it won't matter. They won't have to, worry about us. I think that's what's happening. And I've seen a lot of indicators of that. So that's my theory right now. I haven't seen anything to the contrary that makes me think that that's not what's happening right now. So let me bring it back to this eclipse. That's one of the reasons why wars happen, right? Wars are very much have to do with resources, and they kind of always have. Whether it's the resources of land, water, minerals is going to be a really big one. It has been a big one. Oil has been a really big one. That's, if you were around in the early 2000s, we've started multiple wars to get better access to cheap oil. So that is already kind of a standard. I think it's going to escalate. And so I think behind a lot of the conflicts right now, resources are a big thing. And we're seeing people in power, I think, trying to stake out resources. And people are resources too, right? Because we're workers and we're consumers, right? So they don't view us as people. I think that they dehumanize, if you're not one of them, you might as well be livestock. I think that's where we're at. And, again, sorry, this is depressing, but this is where we're at. And so, again, war. I think on a mundane level, on a global level, I think that, unfortunately, this eclipse, I think that it's going to be a continuation of conflict. I'm not sure exactly which one. I think the many conflicts that are happening in the Middle East, Israel is starting a lot of things. They're currently occupying Lebanon and Syria in addition to Palestine. So I would look at that. The United States has been bombing Yemen, which was part of that signal leak that happened this week, which is one of the biggest stories of the eclipse. And as it should be, I wish that we were talking a little bit less about them having these conversations in not a secure way, because they're talking about war crimes. They're talking about doing horrible things to Yemen. And the reason why they're doing it to Yemen is because they can't go straight at Iran. So a lot of this is like proxy wars and sending messages, and that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. And the United States, population, we've been so groomed to not care about people that live in other places that I have seen very few people even express concern that we're bombing Yemen, we're killing people, innocent civilians are being killed. And that's one of the reasons why the world is fed up with us. And I said in the Astrology of 2025 that this was the year that we're really going to see people over the United States hegemony bullshit that has been we dominate the world. I think people can't afford to let that continue. And we are very powerful. We have the biggest military in the world. That's where all the money is going. And I think that's all kind of coming to collect in various ways. So with this eclipse energy, on a mundane level, I'm inclined to think that this is more expansion of conflict. Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't. Now, on a personal level, and the reason that I talk about, things on a personal level is not because I'm an individualist at all. I do think that we only have control of ourselves, and I think that we're here to have an experience in this life as an individual. I'm here, this is me, this is my meat suit for this round in life. I'm here to do this, and I've chosen to hop on here and share what I know and what I'm seeing with other people in hopes that we can fight for liberation together in some way, shape, or form. And so it is important to, as much as we zoom out, we see all of these things happening in the world, remember that we're part of the collective. We're part of this world, and maybe we can't single-handedly stop this conflict. And I think it's important that we stop trying to look for those heroes, that one person, that savior that's going to come in and change everything, because this is Pluto in Aquarius. This is a time where the power shift it's with the collective. It's not with the hero that's going to come in. Not that individuals can't do a lot of damage, but the thing that's going to get us through this is working together and not waiting for the hero, sitting by and waiting for somebody to show up and fix things for us, right? We need to come together, we have different skills, different resources. That's one of the beauties of being an individual, right? And so I hope that you've had some time over the course of this eclipse season, especially. We've had Mercury retrograde, we have Venus retrograde, and they've been in Aries. And this is a time for reflection. It's a very reflective time. I think people have been quieter because that a lot of that internal, what is going on? Where do I fit into this is happening for a lot of us below the surface. And so, we just had the equinox not too long ago. That's the astrological new year. It's the beginning of Aries season. We've been kind of waking up from the slumber a little bit, the sleepy energy, the digesting the past year energy. And so the wheels should be starting to turn for a lot of us right now. This is a new moon. The eclipse is a new moon. It's a great time to kind of set your intentions, your resolutions. And this is, the first new moon that we've had in the astrological new year. So, if you are the kind of person that does New Year's resolutions, revisit those now, tweak them. In light of what's going on in the world, it may be time to kind of change some tactics or change some thinking around this thing. But this is about taking stock of our individual power and what we're feeling drawn towards, and kind of turning a new page, right? We're in a new time. And I hope that if you look around at the news, you can kind of feel that things aren't like they used to be. And I have been saying that, 2025 is this year where the past and the future are really like kind of butting up against each other. We're being asked to let go of the old way of thinking and doing things because it's a new time. It's a new era. And there are no saviors. However, each and every one of us is an individual that is part of the collective. And so this is about realizing our personal power and the ability that we have to make a difference. Because if we don't take that power that we each have, whatever it is, because it's going to be different for each of us, if we don't take hold of that, if we don't roll with it in a big way, we're in trouble, right? We need all of our individual skills and ideas and our visions for what we want this future to be. I've been talking a lot about the rise of fascism because I think it's the most important thing that we can be talking about right now, because fascism is something that tries to make us all relatively the same. And so when we embrace our individuality, it's not because we're more important or more special than anyone else, but it is because we are unique, we are us. And so for me, as a radical astrologer, one of my jobs is to help people realize that you are you, the flaws, the challenges, the things that you're really good at for a reason. You're not here to be someone else. You're not here to conform to what the fascists are telling us that we should be like, right? And so the more that we own who we are, we love who we are, respect who we are, the harder it is going to be to make us comply, to make us go quietly. And I also believe that, when we accept ourselves in a radical way, and that doesn't mean that we don't have things to work on or that we're perfect or we never make mistakes, but when we really accept ourselves, it makes it so much easier to accept other people, that they aren't like us, and we can honor the fact that they are an individual just like us. And there's a lot to work with there. So for me, that is the biggest thing that I see when I look at this eclipse. This is, yes, we are all part of this collective. And for me, I think that the experience of being alive and being a person is a spiritual experience. It's if you believe that this is an accident, I still think it can be a spiritual experience, even if you believe that, life is just something that kind of stumbled into the universe, and that's magical. Whatever it is that you believe is fine with me, but for me and for a lot of other people, I view this as a spiritual experience, but it's also driven by, our individual experience, our individual lens. And so the more of us realize our authentic selves and allow that person to be, I think that the more powerful that this collective, the people that don't want to live under fascism, which I think is most people, will be able to build a world that doesn't have room for such things. Does that make sense? So that's the eclipse for me. And again, if you do any sort of rituals, I would treat this as a, it's a cosmic new year. And talking about the eclipse of it all, look at it as a really powerful new moon. And again, we're at the beginning of the astrological new year. So you want to set the tone. It's about setting the tone for the next year. The uncertainty and the pushback that we're getting isn't going to stop anytime soon. And I don't say that to defeat you, but I want you to understand that this is something that is going to take time to play out completely. And we're kind of in the part of the story where things look really hairy. That doesn't mean that they're going to stay that way. Another thing that I want us to own with this eclipse is radical possibility, right? So Aries energy is about the new. And when we are experiencing just a lot of uncertainty, we don't know the ending to all of the stories that we're seeing playing out right now. What we do need to understand is that uncertainty opens up the world for possibility, for radical change. And for those of us who pay a lot of attention to this stuff, I think it's pretty apparent that the systems that we have in the world aren't working. They aren't working. So I don't know that we should be scrambling to save the things that aren't working so much as we should be looking at how can we do things better, that more people can live well and live freely. And to me, that's not about, preserving all of the things that got us here in the first place. This is about being open to possibility, being open to the new, and being open to the better. And we find how we're going to move through that, again, by being firmly within ourselves, by understanding that we have certain skills and abilities to offer. They're not going to be the same, but that we have the power and the passion and the ability to offer something to this larger collective, right? So I would think about that on a personal level. And of course, if you have things that you want to accomplish on a personal level for the year ahead, I think this is the time to kind of make that known to the universe. Sometimes people respond to doing like a physical ritual, writing that stuff down. I think visualizing your goals is a really great helpful tool. So if you want to do some sort of like meditation or a vision board or some kind of creative project to represent the goals that you have for yourself in the coming year, or the visions that you have for yourself and your kind of role in the collective for the year, this is the time. This eclipse would be the time to do that.